Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chantel and today I am going to be doing just an overview of some of my reading plans for the upcoming quarter. So I did this for like fourth quarter last year, and then I did not do anything like this for the first quarter of this year because I just spaced it. But I do want to keep doing sort of quarterly. I'm not necessarily going to call them TBRs, but they're kind of TBRs. This is like the things that I'm going to be focusing on over the next few months. And I am going to be doing a few picks from my prompt jar, my TBR prompt jar, just to give myself a few titles beyond what I'm just sort of continuing doing. So that is what I'm going to be talking about today in this video. My pile of possibilities, TBR, whatever you want to call it, for April, May, and June of 2026, the second quarter of 2026. As I've said, the last time I did one of these, I feel like doing a quarterly as opposed to a monthly TBR or pile of possibilities works better for me, just because the rate at which I read is kind of variable. I tend to maybe read 5 to 8 books a month as opposed to like 10 to 20 books a month like some people do. So it feels to me like it's a little bit more doable to have a TBR for every few months as opposed to every month. To me, the months seem to go by so quickly that by the time I really get started on a monthly TBR, it's already almost the end of the month and I have to start planning the next one, and that feels too rushed to me. So quarterly is sort of the way that I'm thinking about things generally, rather than in terms of here's what I'm going to do every single month. So that's my reasoning for this. I do enjoy doing these videos. I do like talking about my plans and my TBRs and things like that. So I like doing that, and I like having sort of a list to pull from, but I don't necessarily feel like it's productive for me to do one every single month. So that's where I'm at with this. So first of all, I want to talk about just some of the series continuations, things like that I'm working through, that I'm definitely going to be doing in the next over the next 2 to 3 months. First of all is the Witcher series, which it started as a reread, and then we got to the books that I had not yet read. So it's a reread / first time read of the entire Witcher series. And we're nearly finished. I'm actually buddy reading this with my best friend. We're nearly finished. We finished the OG Witcher saga, right? The Lady of the Lake is the final book in the Witcher saga. That's the end of it. After that, there are 2 more prequel novels. And so we started on the first of those, and that's Season of Storms. We're about a quarter of the way through it. I'm enjoying it so far. I just really like the characters and the world. I would read 80 books about these characters. So, I'm having a good time. So I'm going to be finishing this, and then we do have the most recent release, which I have picked up to finish the series off, and that is Crossroads of Ravens, which was released last fall. And so once we're done with this, then I will be completely finished / up to date with all of the Witcher books, novels, and short stories. At least until or unless Andrzej Sapkowski writes another one, which he's threatened to do. So it's very possible that that will happen. But yeah, once I finish this, then I'll be done with the Witcher books, at least. I'll probably... no, not probably. I will certainly be starting a Witcher 3 Wild Hunt replay once I'm finished with the books. That's kind of been the plan the whole time. I haven't played the game in several years, so I've played it a couple of times, but not for several years, and I would really like to replay it, just because after they announced The Witcher 4 coming out, it was like, oh yeah, I want to replay that game. And of course, last year it celebrated its 10-year anniversary, And now there are many rumors swirling that there may be a new DLC coming out for The Witcher 3, basically as a sort of bridge between The Witcher 3 and the upcoming Witcher 4. So now I think is a great time to replay that game. So I'll probably be doing that. So that's that for my Witcher reread, whatever. So I'll be doing, so that's definitely like up on deck, right? What else I have up on deck? Once I finished my current crop of library books, which if you watched my video, my library haul video, you'll know what those current crop of library books are. I'm nearly done with that. I just have one more left. But once I'm done with that, I will be finishing the Rainwild Chronicles by Robin Hobb. So I have these two left to finish this series, at which point I will then only have the final trilogy, the Fitz and the Fool trilogy, left in the realm of the Elderlings. So getting kind of close to the wire on this one, and am both excited and also terrified to finally get to the Fitz and the Fool trilogy. I know it's going to break my heart, but I am really enjoying the Rainwild Chronicles. I have really enjoyed the first two books, and I honestly, I have, after reading the first two books, I honestly have no idea where this series is going to go next. So that's exciting, frankly. Because Robin Hobb never disappoints in that regard. So yeah, I'm very excited to see where she takes this in the final two books. So that is definitely happening very soon. And then we are entering into quarter 2 of Historathon 2026. Again, I'm not sure I've really talked much about Historathon this year on my channel, but I do participate in it, even if it's just reading one book a quarter or so. If you're unaware, Historathon is a year-long reading event. I wouldn't even call it a challenge, really. It's just an event, which is about reading history, nonfiction history, throughout the course of the year. And each quarter, I will link a couple of videos talking about Historathon in a little more detail from some of the folks who run it. It's run by several folks here on Booktube. And each quarter of the year, the year is divided into the 4 quarters, and each quarter is dedicated to, a time period, right? So the first quarter of the year is dedicated to basically prehistory through 500 AD. And then the second quarter of the year, which is April, May, June, is dedicated to the years 500 to 1500 approximately, which of course approximately corresponds to the Middle Ages in Europe, right? So anything about the Middle Ages, medieval stuff, whether that's in Europe or elsewhere, you can read about any kind of history you want. There are no limits. That is the focus of quarter 2, is basically, 500 to 1500 AD. And I do, in fact, have 2 books that I will try to get to in quarter 2. Both of them are by Dan Jones, and both of them fit quarter 2 perfectly. So I have here the Plantagenets, which of course is the dynasty that ruled England for most of the Middle Ages. And I also have Powers and Thrones, A New History of the Middle Ages. So these are both sitting on my TBR shelf. And I'll probably try to read both in quarter 2. We'll see how we go. I've never read Dan Jones, but I've heard many good things about him. And so I've, just sort of coincidentally picked up a couple of his books in the past few months, and both of them are good quarter 2 reads, so I will be trying to read them. And we'll see how I like him. I don't mind a sort of popular narrative history, as long as it's well enough researched and the person behind it actually knows what they're talking about and cites their sources appropriately. I don't mind a sort of more popular narrative history once in a while. So I am kind of looking forward to these, actually. I've been reading some more dry scholarly history lately, which is fine. But again, sometimes it's nice to have a break and read something that's a little bit more readable, more popular, more narrative focused, a little bit breezier. So that's my plans for Historathon Q2 as of right now, is to read some Dan Jones. I also am planning on doing some more reading for my classic fantasy reading project. I've neglected it sorely in the past few months. I read a couple of things from the Victorian period. I read some Lewis Carroll and some George MacDonald, but I really want to get back to it. So I am planning to read some more George MacDonald. I read Phantastes, which is often considered sort of like the grandfather of modern fantasy novels. But he also has another sort of fantasy-ish novel that he wrote towards the end of his life called Lilith that I am planning to read. And I would also like to start dipping my toes into some William Morris. William Morris is another of these sort of late Victorian writers who dabbled in fantasy and fairy tale-esque type narratives, and so I am planning to do that. Those books are primarily available in ebook format from my local library or from Project Gutenberg because they are in the public domain. So that is my plan for my continuing in my sort of classic fantasy reading project. I want to do a little bit more George MacDonald and start looking at some of William Morris's stuff. And then we'll see where I go from there. That's my definitive plan, though. So those are sort of, I would say, the priorities that I'm going to be looking at over the next few months. Those are the things that I'm going to be like, those are the things that are sort of top of mind for me right now for Q2. And in addition, I would like to grab my little TBR prompt jar and maybe draw, I don't know, maybe 5 little slips of paper from this jar and see if I can come up with like 5 more titles from my physical TBR shelf or even just from my library that I might want to try out. So that is what I'm going to do now. It's the fun part of this video, which is the, oh my gosh, what am I going to pick? Drawing part of it. So let's see what I can get. I'm going to maybe go with like 5. We'll see how easy it is for me to find books with 5. Sorry about that. Just as I drew the slip of paper, my dog started barking. But I can assure you this is the one I drew, and it is friend or family recommendation. I don't know if you can see that, but that is what I drew, friend or family recommendation. And I actually have a title for this that I just purchased the ebook of because my best friend told me that I needed to read it. And that is King Sorrow by Joe Hill. So I have never read a Stephen King book. I don't really have any inclination to. I'm not really, he doesn't really write the kind of horror that I'm into. And that is primarily what he writes, is horror, and his fantasy doesn't really appeal to me either that much, frankly. So I've never read Stephen King. But my best friend has read a fair amount of Stephen King, and they have also read a fair amount of Joe Hill, who is, of course, Stephen King's son. And they recently read King Sorrow and basically told me that I need to read it. And I trust my best friend implicitly. We've known each other for like 20 years. We know each other's taste very well. And when they tell me to read a book, I understand that I should probably read this book. And it was on sale on Kindle for like $2 or something last week. And so I bought it just because it's a big book and I didn't want to hold a large book in my hands while reading it. So I actually do have it on my Kindle, and I was planning to read it at some point this year anyway. So perfect, right? Yeah, sure, why not? Friend, family rec. This is my best friend telling me to read this book. So I'll try to get to King Sorrow sometime by the end of June. So that's an easy first one. Good for me. Let's see if we get another good one here. Or another easy one, at least. Okay. I got fairy tale vibes. This one might be, a couple of things come to mind at first. A couple of possibilities. I do have some more T. Kingfisher to read. And I know she does have an upcoming sequel to Swordheart, which may work for this prompt. And I am planning to purchase it and buy it because I own Swordheart, and so I will purchase the sequel. Another possibility might be some of the classic fantasy that I'm reading, some of the Victorian fantasy. Much of that has big fairy tale vibes, but I'm also going to go and look at my TBR shelf and see if I have anything that I think might qualify on my physical TBR shelf. Yeah, I kind of came up empty on my physical TBR shelf for anything that seems like it would be explicitly fairy tale-esque. I don't really currently have anything like that. Most of what I did have on my shelf, I've already read and put on my regular shelves. So I think probably what I'll do is, yeah, it'll probably be either like one of the classic fantasies that I read, or possibly a T. Kingfisher, but we'll see. And I could also try to come up with something from the library. The other possibility I can think of would be to get the sequel to The Bear and the Nightingale from Catherine Arden from my library. I still have not read that. I read The Bear and the Nightingale like last year, and I still haven't gotten back to it. I really should, and that is very fairy tale-esque in some ways, so that might also be a possibility. So there's a couple of options I have there, and I'm not sure exactly which one I will decide on, but I'll think of something. I will think of something. So let's do pick number 3 from the old TBR jar. See what else I can come up with. I honestly don't even remember most of the prompts that I even have in this jar, what they are. So let's find out. Let's see. Oh, author is trans or non-binary. Actually, I actually have a book out from the library right now by a non-binary author, and that is Son of the Morning by Akwaeke Emezi. And I am going to be reading that next. When I finish making and editing this video, I'm probably going to start reading Son of the Morning. So that actually is already covered. So trans or non-binary author is already covered. I may also go back to Rivers Solomon at some point. I definitely want to read some more Rivers Solomon. I read Model Home by Rivers Solomon last year and really enjoyed it. So I could, that is also certainly a possibility. But yeah, right now I currently have sitting upstairs next to my chair Son of the Morning by Akwaeke Emezi, and Akwaeke Emezi is non-binary, so that is perfectly doable. So here's pick number 4. Big money, no whammies. I don't think there's any whammies in here. No such thing as a whammy when you're picking from a TBR jar, really, but, short stories. Okay. I can do that. I'll be right back, in fact. I'll go grab what I have. So I actually have 2 short story collections sitting on my physical TBR shelf. 3, actually, if you count a collection of short stories set in the Star Wars The High Republic universe. but I'm not going to read that until I'm at the appropriate point in my read/reread of the High Republic. But the two that I do have that I could potentially get to would be How Long Till Black Future Month, which is a collection of short stories by N.K. Jemisin, largely sort of Afrofuturism type stories, I believe, and you know, I like N.K. Jemisin a lot. I've read several of her books, so this would be, you know, a great option. And I do also have this. This is the best American science fiction and fantasy short stories of 2022, edited by Rebecca Roanhorse. So I grabbed this. Let's see, was this at a library sale? It might have been a library sale a couple of years ago, and I still have never read these stories. Includes stories by Elizabeth Bear, P. Jelly Clark, Meg Ellison, Stephen Graham Jones, Nalo Hopkinson, Kelly Link, Karen Russell, Pang Shepard, and Catherine M. Valenti. So some authors that I have read before, some that I have not, many of which I have heard of and have heard very good things about. So this is another strong possibility. So yeah, I will try to get to one, if not both of these books of short stories, collections of short stories, in the second quarter. That sounds great to me. I appreciate a good short story collection. So yeah, that seems extremely doable. So let's do one final pick just to make it a nice, you know, not even. 5 is not an even number, but a nice round 5. I like 5 as a number. 5 is a good number. Secondary world fantasy. Secondary world fantasy. So a fantasy that is not set in this world, but in another world. And I have several that I could choose from. Obviously, I'm currently reading 2 series of secondary world fantasy series. But let me see if I can pluck something else from my TBR shelf that would qualify. So as expected, I have a few options for secondary world fantasy on my physical TBR shelf. And of course, I also have some like series that I could continue reading from my library that would also qualify, and some series that I could start reading if I wanted to. But I just to arbitrarily narrow it down, I picked 3 titles that I could possibly do, 2 of which are continuations of series that I've already started, and one of which is a standalone. So first I pulled off the Hexologists, A Tangle of Time by Josiah Bancroft. This is the sequel to the Hexologists. I really enjoyed the Hexologists. This is about a married couple who sort of solve supernatural-ish problems and crimes in a secondary world that's based heavily on sort of early 20th century England. But it is a secondary world fantasy. It's very fun. I enjoyed it a lot. It's very sort of lighthearted, tongue-in-cheek, though the stakes are relatively high. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's cozy in that sense. But it is a secondary world fantasy, and I did enjoy it a lot. It's a very enjoyable, fun romp through this world. So that's a strong possibility. The other possibility would be potentially Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is, of course, the sequel to Gideon the Ninth. And I really enjoyed Gideon the Ninth. Again, it's sort of like, it was often tongue-in-cheek. The only reason why I kind of hesitated a little bit with this is because I suppose you might qualify this as a sci-fi rather than a fantasy because it takes place in space. But like, it's sci-fantasy really. So I mean, I think it qualifies. It's definitely a secondary world. But yeah, I think this could also be a good, strong contender. I do want to get back to this series as well, so that's a possibility. And finally, I did slide this booger off of my TBR shelf. It's been there for a while. It is, of course, Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. This is a standalone secondary world fantasy, so this would be nice if I need a break from all the series and just want a one and done kind of situation. So that's also a strong possibility. I've heard very good things about M.L. Wong. I would like to give her a shot. As you can see from the stupid sticker on the cover, I got it for half off. So yeah, we'll see what we do. I may try to get to all three of these. In theory, I would like to get to all three of these, right, in the next 3 months. But we'll see how we go. I will definitely try to do one of them, you know, prioritize one of them, and if I have time, get to all three of them. So that is my plan, I guess, for the next quarter of the year. That is April, May, and June of 2026. I'm going to finish the Witcher books. I'm going to finish the Witcher books. I'm going to finish the Rainwild Chronicles. I'm going to try to read at least one, if not both, of these Dan Jones books for Historathon. And then I have a strong pile of possibilities based on my TBR prompt jar picks, as well as my classic fantasy project, which is ongoing. And that's all in addition to, you know, continuing to read Terry Pratchett, hopefully. I still haven't gotten back to Discworld yet this year, but I would like to. And continuing my read of Tolkien's History of Middle-earth, which I also still have not gotten to this year, but I will hopefully get back to as well. So yeah, as always, there's a lot on my plate, and a lot of it is just a matter of how I want to prioritize things, really, and what order in which, the order in which I want to actually get to all of these things. So we'll see how much of this I can actually get to in the second quarter. And yeah, that's all I got for today. What are some of your plans for the rest of the spring and leading into the summer? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you've got any good Historathon picks planned out, if you've got any great standalones or series continuations that you're working on, or if you've got any personal projects that you're doing. Let's talk about it. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!